Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prachajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai, Gornitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from Canto 10, chapter 71, and there are two texts, text 29 and text 30. So interestingly enough, it's a 6-line verse, which is a little bit more unusual. So text 29. Sutta Magadha Gandharva Vandinash Chopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panava Gomukhai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtuvur Nanritur Jaguhu Sutta Magadha Gandharva Mandinas Chopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panavago Mukhai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtubur Nanrutur Jagu Sutta Magadha Gandharva Vandinas Chopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panavago Mukhai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtuvur Nanritur Jagu. Please chant. Sutta Magadha Gandharva Vandinaschopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panavago Mukhai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtuvur Nanritur Jagu Sutta Magadha Gandharva Vandinaschopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panavago Mukhai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtuvur Nanritur Jagu Sutta Magadha Gandharva Vandinaschopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panavago Mukhai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtuvur Nanritur Jagu Sutta Magadha Gandharva Vandinaschopa Mantrinaha Mridanga Shankha Pataha Vina Panavago Mukai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtavurnan Ritsuchagu Sutta Magada Gandharva Andinashopa Mantrina Medanga Shankapata Vina Panavago Mukai Brahmanaschara Vindaksham Tushtavurnan Ritsuchagu. So the word for word, sutta, bards. That's the translation, the word for word, bards. Magadha, chroniclers. Gandharva, demigods known for their singing. Vandina, eulogists. Cha, and upamantrinaha, jesters. Madanga, with madanga drums. Shankha, conch shells. Pataha, kettle drums. Veena, venas. Panava, a smaller drum. Gomukhai, and Gomukha horns. Brahmana, brahmanas. Cha, as well. Aravinda Aksham, the lotus-eyed Lord. Tushtuvu, glorified with hymns. Nantru, danced. Jagu, sang. And the translation for text 29. Suttas, Magadas, Gandharvas, Bandis, jesters, and brahmanas all glorified the lotus-eyed Lord, some reciting prayers, some dancing and singing, as madangas, conch shells, kettle drums, venas, panavas, and gomukhas resounded. And text 30. Evam surutpi paryastaha punya shloka shikhamanihi samstu yamano bhagavaha viveshalankritam puram. And the translation for text 30. Thus, surrounded by his well-wishing relatives and praised on all sides, Lord Krishna, the crest jewel of the justly renowned, entered the decorated city. And there's the BBT purport for text 30, and it's drawing from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, while Lord Krishna was entering the city, all the people were talking amongst themselves about the glories of the Lord, praising his transcendental name, quality, form, etc. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapsa Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Panchakalpataribhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Ram Padaswami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Pachyata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's commentary by Srila Jiva Goswami on text 29. So I'll just read the translation again to refresh. Suttas, Magadas, Gandharvas, Bandis, jesters, and Brahmanas all glorified the lotus-eyed Lord, some reciting prayers, some dancing and singing as madangas, conch shells, kettle drums, venas, panavas, and gomukhas resounded. So this is Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary on text 29. These are his words. The suttas, which from the translation we know is bards, Magadas, again, the translation was chroniclers, and Gandharvas sang and danced using instruments. The Vandis, the translation was eulogists, and orators, that word that was used was upamantrinaha for the orators, praise the Lord, close quote. So that's Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary. So one can note there's something said by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who's the only other personality that commented on this verse. He notes that there's a list. You notice there's a list. And the list is in increasing order of excellence in praising, which I thought was very nice. So the list is going from the least to the most excellent for praising Lord Krishna. So naturally, if Srila Sanatana Goswami is making such a statement, it presupposes that there's already been a comparison that's been made for this list that's in question, the praises of Lord Krishna. So I thought we could look at it a little bit, at least by definition, so perhaps it becomes a little bit clearer. So a bard is defined as a national minstrel or epic poet. So, for example, in Western culture, William Shakespeare is called the Bard of Avon. So he's a national poet, and he's representing something of the national history in some sense, or the epic of the country, or in epic form, in a poetic form. And a chronicler is one who's reciting the historical record of facts. So it's just this happened, that happened in this year, that year, etc. So the events are arranged in some sort of order in which they happen. So that's the chronicler. And the eulogist is somebody who's using speech or writing in praise of a person. So we use the word to eulogize. So it's praising somebody in speech or writing. And in all cases, these categories of persons are engaged in praising. So that's the common denominator. So even somebody who's merely listing the sequence of events as they happened, meaning like a chronicler, still it's with the intention of praising. Because you select events that are in line with a common theme, and it was to praise Lord Krishna. Now, and that's what they were doing. They're praising, and those were the words that were used in this text, the lotus-eyed Lord, through prayer. So in fact, it was a form of prayer, the poetry, the eulogy, even the chronicling of events. It's in the form of prayer. So there's a commentary, there's a contemporary example of a poet, and that's Kalakanta Das in the ISKCON movement, where he's reciting in poetic form. And I thought to look at the section we've been covering has to do with that, the reason for Lord Krishna undertaking this particular journey. And one of the purposes was to release the jailed kings, or to respond to the jailed king's plea for help. So here I'm going to read from Kalakanta Das in poetic form his description of how the jailed kings are actually praising Lord Krishna through their messenger who's come to Lord Krishna. So, because he's relaying the words of the king. So, Kalakanta Das has put it into poetic form. So, here we go. So, this is poetry. So, hopefully, I can express it in the correct. Perhaps it's not been sung, so it's not in the meter isn't so prominent, but there certainly is a meter, and you'll notice that how there's rhyming that's happening at the end of the particular lines of the poem. So this is all the jailed kings, particular prayers of Lord Krishna in their coming via the messenger, looking for, pleading for, or expressing their plea for help from Lord Krishna. So here we go. O endless Krishna, who destroys your disciples' terrors, we selfish kings are scared and beg for your lotus shelter. As worldly people, we did not heed your good instructions. So you have come as time and humbled us with destruction. O Lord of all, who has descended to save the pious, we must confess that there is something that mystifies us. Jarasandha has broken all Vedic regulations, yet he has been able to put us in such tribulation. Our happy royal lives were simply a grand illusion. We clutched our problems and threw out their ideal solution. Devotion to your lotus feet made without condition, and now our bodies are but corpses with big positions. Since you remove the grief of those who bow down before you, release us from our chains of agony, we implore you. Jarasandha has captured us like a herd of cattle, but you defeated him in 17 famous battles. You then allowed him to defeat you for your own purpose, but that filled him with so much pride that he fiercely hurts us. Because we are your devotees, he chose us to step on. Please rectify our plight with your deadly chakra weapon. So that was a compilation, or quite a large compilation, on the 10th canto from Kalakanta, and it's entitled A God Who Dances. Now, Srila Sanatan comments that, and these are, he's quoting, subordinates of dancers danced with madangas. And now, again, Srila Sanatan Goswami draws attention to the fact that the list of instruments is in order of increasing cause of blissful dancing. So it's notice how specific the acharyas are. They're picking, or Srila Sanatan Goswami is picking out, looking at a list, and he's actually seeing that it's been arranged in order of increasing blissful dancing. So it starts with the one that's less and builds up to the one that's the most powerful in terms of creating blissful dancing. So here's a description given by, I'm going to draw from the history of ISKCON. So there's a description given by Yamuna Devi Dasi for her first experience of hearing cymbals played by Srila Prabhupada. So starting with one instrument. So here's her description. He, meaning Srila Prabhupada, picked up a pair of hand cymbals, closed its eyes, and established a simple 1, 2, 3 beat. Quickly, other cymbals and instruments joined him with the rhythm. Then the Swami began chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In a simple melody, soon other voices followed, singing along with him in call and response fashion. And this is her talking. When I looked around, I saw I was the only person not chanting kirtan. I decided to give it a try to join in. I listened to the order of the words until I got it, and then chanted, first slowly and then with more confidence. I immediately felt good. No lyrics to remember or instruments vying for center stage. Notice that particular point. It's not that the instruments are competing with each other. Just a ragtag group of near strangers chanting a simple melody following a simple rhythm, and the 16-syllable mantra consisting of only 3 words, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. So that's nicely recorded in a book entitled The Yoga of Kirtan. And I'm going to read more from there because that was just highlighting the fact that the instruments don't compete with each other. Now, here's another description where you get the idea of different musical instruments coming together in one song. And if you bear in mind what Srila Sanatana Goswami said of the listing of the instruments that were accompanying the praising of Lord Krishna, might be interesting to hear this, and then I'll make a little comparison with the ones that were listed in this verse today. So here's how the description is in the Yoga of Kirtan for the musical instruments for the Govindam song. So that's the song we hear every morning at the greeting of the deities. So this is how it came about. Initially, there were 6 of us in our Radha Krishna temple group. So that's all in capital letters. They would call themselves the Radha Krishna temple group. Shama Sundar played saranga. Mukunda played madanga drum. I, meaning Yamuna, played harmonium and most often led kirtan. Janaki, Malati, and Guru Das played percussion, especially kartals. When we recorded our first 45-hit single, the group increased with several more devotee voices. By the time we recorded the Radha Krishna Temple LP, this is all in capital letters, the Radha Krishna Temple LP, the group further increased with more devotee musicians. Yogeshwar on drum and some vocals, Tamal Krishna on flute, Haridas on oud, to name a few. On the Govindam cut alone, George, meaning George Harrison, added his own guitar, Jasmine, Billy Preston's organ, and sounds from the London String Quartet. So a whole orchestral arrangement accompanied the various devotees on the various instruments. Srila Prabhupada eventually called that particular track, and these are the words of Srila Prabhupada, a symphony of Krishna consciousness. So that's again drawing from the Yoga of Kirtan. Anyway, the book has got the the nun devotee name Stephen Rosen on it as author for anybody who's interested. So Satyaraj, yes, thank you. Satyaraj Das. So the description that was given in the particular verse we read, the instruments were listed like this. So bearing in mind that it's indicating some bliss, more bliss, more bliss, more bliss. Here is the listing. And this is, let me go back to that list so you can hear it. Okay. Madangas, conch shells, kettle drums, venas, panavas, and gomukas resounded. So we take it that gomukas is the chief instrument that's creating blissful dancing. I guess because it's quite loud. I mean, those that are musicians in the audience will know better the finer details of why the panavas and gomukas, so their horn sounds, they're increasing the blissful dancing. So that's just a point that was made by H.G.Krsnarcana Goswami. And here we have the instruments, and this is going like this. Performing artists like the Gandharvas, as well as the royal jokers, began to play their Panava drums, conch shells, kettle drums, venas, madangas, and bugles. And they exhibited their dancing art to please the Lord. So this is Srila Prabhupada, and notice he's got a different list. In his list, the madangas and bugles would be the ones, if one were looking at a list, that actually increase the blissful dancing. Bugles being at the top of the list for creating most bliss. So, and indeed, one feels excitement with hearing a little different sound permeating. So I can appreciate. So again, Srila Prabhupada's order gives the madangas and bugles as the top of the list for creating blissful dancing. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami, he continues in his commentary. And these are his words. The Brahmanas said, this is them talking to Lord Krishna, having protected real Dharma for us and others, may you live long. And Srila Jiva Goswami gives another alternative for the particular praising of Lord Krishna. Out of great joy, all praised and sang using instruments, because having seen him with his lotus eyes, that's Aravindaksham, that was the word we chanted, all suffering ceased and all joy manifested. So there's a complete transformation of emotional inner state by seeing the lotus-eyed Lord. Suffering ends and joy manifests just by seeing Lord Krishna. So that's Srila Jiva Goswami commenting further. Now, if we look at the particular consequence of seeing Lord Krishna and what transpires, we can look at what happened to the imprisoned kings, because I recited a whole poem of what their mood was towards Lord Krishna. So they express themselves. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're going to come to it in the 73rd chapter. This is how they express themselves. Obeisances unto you, O Lord of the ruling demigods, O destroyer of your surrendered devotees' distress. Since we have surrendered to you, O inexhaustible Krishna, please save us from this terrible material life which has made us so despondent. So that's how they express themselves. And if you remember from the particular nice poetic form put together by Kalakanta Das, they say, since you remove the grief of those who bow down before you, release us from our chains of agony, we implore you. So that's, and now when they actually do see Lord Krishna, that's the first thing they say, obeisances unto you, and proceed to say, destroyer of your surrendered devotees' distress. They understand that. And what do they see as distress? Save us from this terrible material life which has made us so despondent. So I'm going to read further poetic descriptions, since these verses all have to do with, poets, bards, eulogists praising Lord Krishna. So I'm going to read our contemporary poet Kalakanta Das, where he puts it in poetic form, the kings expressing themselves when Lord Krishna does come to release them from the horrible condition that they were in, being imprisoned. So here's the whole description of that moment in poetic form. The kings emerged from prison looking soiled and poorly dressed. Their bodies looked emaciated, pale, and greatly stressed. They saw the Lord in yellow silks and skin of monsoon blue, his smiling face adorned with lotus eyes of pinkish hue. The Lord displayed his four-armed form, and in his lotus hands a conch shell, lotus, disc, and club awaited his command. His gorgeous gems and flowers made the Lord appear so sweet. The kings forgot their senses as they bowed and touched his feet. To see the Lord was ecstasy. The kings at once forgot the weariness of prison, having gained what they sought. The master of the senses stood before them, then and there. They joined their palms, stood up as one, and thankfully declared, O Lord, this ghastly world has made us thoroughly depressed. We bow to you, who crushes a submissive soul's distress. We do not blame Jarasandha, for our torment was your grace, to rid us of illusions that attach us to this place. As childish men seek water from mirages in the sand, a fool reveres the illusions that keep slipping through his hand. Forgetting you and chasing wealth, we fought without regard for anybody else. Dear Lord, your lesson has been hard. Mirages such as kingdoms shall no longer swindle us, to prostitute our bodies as they dwindle into dust. We'll not hear heaven's tantalizing song, however sweet. Our pride is gone. We only long to touch your lotus feet. Please tell us how to think of you as we endure our fate. Of death and birth upon this earth we can't evacuate. O son of Vasudev, we bow to you repeatedly, for you destroy the pain of your surrendered devotee. So that was in poetic form, the particular king's processing of seeing Lord Krishna and understanding what role he was to actually play and what their attitude had been and how their attitude had actually changed so greatly. And they actually called their lesson very hard, the lesson that Krishna had given them. But it had destroyed what they had been utilizing their bodies for, which was just to acquire more wealth, more land. Uh, so, but they're understanding that the real problem was just the fact that they couldn't vacate the birth and death. They weren't able to actually rid themselves of that. So, in effect, the kings say that they've been relieved of enjoyment because of their experiencing suffering. So now this may sound very strange. Why would you want to relieve yourself of enjoyment? You actually want to enjoy more generally. But they see it that they've actually been relieved of enjoyment because they experience suffering. So they're going through suffering, and then it allows one to reflect on what you considered enjoyable and actually weigh it up. Was it really enjoyable? So that was the lesson. But they found it a very hard lesson. They say that. And Srila Vishwanath notes that it's Krishna's supreme position as the Lord and his removing the pains of those surrendered to him, which indicates his affection for his devotees. So the fact that he's even putting one, or put these kings who were so surrendered to him through such a hard lesson, that all their wealth, their position gets taken away. I mean, the description that's given is that they emerged from a prison all emaciated, poorly dressed, looking dirty. The fact that Krishna put them through that lesson actually indicates his affection for them. That's Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur noting. It's actually a sign of his affection for them. Now, there's a description by Srila Prabhupada for the last verse, the text 30 that we'd read. And I'll just remind you of text 30. It went like this. Thus surrounded by his well-wishing relatives and praised on all sides, Lord Krishna, the crest jewel of the justly renowned, entered the decorated city. So this last verse is also described by Srila Prabhupada in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he puts it like this. Thus the all-famous Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, entered the great city of Hastinapur, which was opulent in every respect. While Lord Krishna was entering the city, all the people talked amongst themselves about the glories of the Lord, praising his transcendental name, qualities, form, and so on. Like generally, it's not so polite to speak about a person and in their presence, but when it's a case of praising, you can certainly do that. So all the people were talking about Lord Krishna, talking about his glories, talking about his transcendental qualities, his beautiful form, etc. And Srila Jiva Goswami notes that the praise was for Lord Krishna's famous attractiveness. So that was the highlighted topic of discussion. And Srila Prabhupada writes, and this is coming from a purport in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says that one's life is successful if one is absorbed in the attraction of Krishna's strength, his fame, his beauty, as described in these pastimes in the 10th canto. So it actually makes one's life successful if one can actually absorb oneself in the way that we're hearing these people in Hastinapur were, and the way the kings were, absorbed in his beauty, absorbed in his fame, absorbed in his strength. So Krishna is so attractive via his beauty, via his strength, via his knowledge, via his reputation, and his renunciation. That one can give up. That's what allows one to give up all desirable things for his sake. So, because that was what the kings were forced to do. They were not planning to do that, to give up everything they considered desirable, their wealth, their position, their land, their subjects. But for Krishna, one is actually able to give up everything for his sake. And so, what's in effect happening is that one's giving up the attraction for material things, such as one's attraction to one's own body, because one starts to become aware of one's body and find one's own body attractive. One finds one's own home attractive. One finds one's relatives attractive. And one finds one's wealth attractive. But one's able to give up that attraction for those things. So it doesn't mean you're necessarily giving up your wealth or your body. You're residing in your body, you're residing in your home, you're utilizing your wealth. But what you're giving up is that attraction for those material things. So that one's life is not diverted to such sources of so-called attractiveness, because the real attractiveness lies in that absorption in Krishna's beauty, Krishna's strength, Krishna's knowledge, Krishna's reputation, Krishna's renunciation. So that was some breakdown of the two verses of today. If there's something to expand the discussion, some thought that you wish to contribute.
Of course, you, I can especially appreciate the subject matter.
Yes.
And one thing that, I think on this verse number 29 is the importance of these expert groups of artists that create this very festive and ecstasy inducing atmosphere. And they were specific and very, I'm assuming, very expert in their field, that they're very specific. So, so you can appreciate that when there is this type of praising of the Lord, because what we're hearing here is Shravan and Kirtana. There is the hearing and there is the chanting of the glories of the Lord with these different artistic presentations, and the importance of doing that to create the atmosphere of hearing and chanting in the population. Because then you mention that as Krishna is passing, Srila Jiva Goswami say people were talking about the praises of the Lord, the glories of the Lord too, and specifically appreciating His beauty. But when you have these expert personalities, artists creating that atmosphere is just so important. I remember the first experience that I have of a Sunday feast. It just blew me away in New York because the kirtan was so mesmerizing, specifically because there were some of the best kirtaniyas in the world were at that time stationed in New York, and it was so expertly done. I mean, so exciting. It was irresistible, and the explosion of ecstasy of the devotees. It was quite an experience. You can still see some videos of the famous, Radha Govinda Kirtan. So I think it's an important feature. And sometimes it gets lost because this idea sometimes of inclusivity, that there should be equal opportunity for anyone who have a desire to do this type of activities. And it doesn't necessarily create ecstasy. It creates, like you appreciate the devotion, but it's not, like you're jumping to dance and things like that. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for the comment. Well, it's a very relevant comment because the description in the two verses, it's a public event, and Lord Krishna is present. So it's no different from being in a temple where Krishna is present in the deity form. And if there's a large congregation of persons, it's a public event. So naturally, to create the right atmosphere where there is the inducing a blissful state, it makes perfect sense that those that are skilled at playing particular instruments will bring about or help to induce that blissful state. So the connection between skill in a particular art and the emotional effect makes perfect sense, because generally any famous artist, even on a material level, is famous because of their capacity to induce emotion and evoke memories of a certain kind, perhaps through an image or sounds. So it's the same idea. The skill, so the rhythm meter, the tempo, the melodies, it's naturally going to have an emotional effect on all those present. So certainly on a public event, it makes perfect sense that those that are highly skilled should be in the forefront for creating the atmosphere and the mood. Thank you very much for your comment. It's much appreciated. I mean, just to add to it, even the little example of the in the 1970s, I assume it wasn't dated, um, the description by Satyaraj where Jamuna's conveying to him how a public record was put out where the devotees are singing and playing instruments. Notice that the expert musician George Harrison is adding the London String Quartet. He's bringing in a jazz organist, a professional, to add to it. So it creates a whole symphony. So there's the understanding of needing to embellish to create the whole. So, and that comes with being skilled in a particular an area of artistic expression, as George Harrison clearly was. Uh, Sorry,
Sheila,
we have expert musicians present in this discussion, so it's very important that they actually give their thoughts.
Srila Prabhupada also made clear that we're not, when in the performance and the presentation of Sankirtan, he said we're not professional musicians. We're, Vaishnavas, we're devotees. So the most important part is the glorification of the Lord. It's not about creating sounds and creating experiences, but it's actually the devotional part of glorifying and hearing about the glories of the Lord, and glorifying the holy name. So Prabhupada emphasized, yes, it's important that we're expert in doing it and we do it nicely, but the focus is not, we don't need to be, musicians, all accomplishes there. It's more important the devotional part. Sometimes we lose that with having expert playing of a particular instrument, but then is so focused on the skill and not on the communicating the devotional emotion, that he doesn't produce ecstasy, rather he
Yes, of
produces
course.
like a
Thank
more
you.
passionate thing.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it's not, it's with the understanding that the skill is being utilized for the correct purpose, which is glorification of Krishna. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for so much detail on, of course, this subject. Um, I think it's also what I noticed. There was a lot of unity in the diversity, because even if you can still have expert musicianship and devotion simultaneously. Hare Krishna. You can have all of that, but the unity is in the diversity, and um, the personalities. Because what interests me personally, even more so than the musicians, is the gestures. I think I mentioned it before. Like, um, what did the gestures? Were they telling jokes? And they, of course, they didn't have mood of awe and reverence if they were gestures, right? What do you know anything about what the gestures
Oh, the
were
jest.
doing? Yeah.
Oh, the jesters. Yes,
Yeah.
the mention was. Let's go back to that. Yeah, I think it's said even. Let's find it. Jesters, yes. So the jesters were Upamantrinaha, and then the particular attention was drawn to that, Upamantrinaha, uh, which says that they were praising the Lord. So that was the Srila Jiva Goswami commenting on that. And he actually drew attention to that. He said orators and jesters praise the Lord. Oh, take the microphone. What was said was that there's an example in our contemporary society, Yadunath Prabhu, who has taken that role sometimes of doing jest, but it's in praise of Lord Krishna. Yes, it's a devotee on the East Coast who actually does performances on Broadway, and he's also done various minuscule scenarios for devotees that include jesting.
Jesting, like jokes, making jokes.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes,
Because I
yes.
feel like
But it's in praise of Lord Krishna. Yeah.
That's really awesome. So yeah, thank you for. I'm of course absorbed in this subject matter, and I just pray that it can be holistic and not like just be holistic, the Lord's will, whatever pleases Krishna.
Yeah, yeah. Everything should have a kind of healthy mood, yes. So, of course, we need not go into the unhealthy aspect of things because we're putting a focus on the healthy, with the main point being that all the skills and the utilization of skills to create a particular mood is to enhance the devotional atmosphere, and it's with the intention of pleasing Lord Krishna. So, yes, indeed.
I don't know if it's right or wrong or if it's important, but it's since as a so-called musician, since I've been in the temple, um, there's been this feeling of like you can really glorify Krishna by becoming expert at the
Yeah.
whatever you do.
Yeah.
I become because whatever praise that you get from other people, like, oh God, oh you just, oh, and then you say, no, it's not me. Like Rock would always say, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And as long as you give that light is shined upon you, and then you give it back the praise to Krishna, it seems like that's um, also a service to go be very serious about um, like whatever you're doing. Try to take it as far as whatever your adhikar is, whatever your capacity is, to take it as far as you can for the glorification of the Lord. And
Exactly.
it seems like how it's been revealing itself to me.
It builds.
It's been revealing itself to me that um, it's like in the Western world, the musician gets on the stage and everyone claps for that person. But there's so much that could be done in a sincere way, like in kirtan for the deity. There's so much untapped potential for praising the Lord in expert ways.
Yes, and that's, goes, I mean, one touches on the fact that if one has a mood of service, uh, then naturally uh, part of the devotional component is trying to utilize one's skill, one's intelligence to the utmost, and then refine it over time. And the intelligence comes from Krishna, where you come to understand, oh, actually, I can improve on this in this way. Oh, yes, I can actually correct this. Oh, I overlooked that. So indeed, you do, and it's said that devotees become very expert at what they do. So it has to do with giving close attention to what you're doing, whatever your area of service is, giving close attention and refining over time, and actually giving such close attention increases one's own happiness, because one sees that, oh, it's actually becoming more beautiful. Oh, this is an even better offering for Krishna. Yeah. So thank you for bringing up that point. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.